law there. Is that right?
Yeah. So were you on here when the lockdown happened?
Yeah, I was actually taking the final. I walked over at 9:30 this morning. I saw like the first cop car pull up and like whipped out like an assault rifle and like started yelling at the construction guys. And then I went straight over. It had like to take a final, and then we went into lockdown like halfway through. So it's pretty crazy. But yeah.
How were the police? Were they just telling people to get on the ground or anything like that?
No, I saw like the first cop come up, like very first one, like before like everyone started swarming, and like I saw that. I was like at 9:30 in the morning. I got my final. I like walked over. It was like across campus. It was actually like pretty far from Bolter, the engineering building, but I didn't see it during the height of everything.
Did I give you guys any kind of information as to what was going on? Why the cop went up? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, they had some of the administrators in the Murphy Hall building. They were calling us and giving us updates and stuff and like helping reassure people.
How were you feeling when you heard all that? What were you thinking?
It's crazy. It makes it hard to think about final, but it's crazy. I don't know. They're crazy people. What are you gonna do? But
what do you think the answer is to stuff like this?
I'm for more gun control myself, but I don't know. This sort of stuff's always gonna happen. I feel like I don't know. I think more gun control, to be honest, but whatever.
All right, well, there you have it. Thanks, man. There you have it. A victim of a gun-free zone thinks that more gun control is better.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that'll stop the criminals from getting it, won't it? Just like drug control has worked, doesn't it, Joe? We don't have drugs anymore because for 45 years we've had the war on drugs that prohibited drugs, so we don't have that problem anymore, do we? We have it in spades. Yeah, we have it in spades.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Exactly, because whenever you make something illegal, guess what? Criminals find a way to get it, and then it gets on the street. I mean, even our own government of criminals, Fast and Furious, trying to take guns, and what are they doing? Straw purchases, all this stuff, allowing other people to get it, and we get our own agents killed by it. It's ridiculous.
Precisely, because what you wind up with is the corruption of government, and the government gets involved in the illicit trade, and you see the intensity of it go up, just as we saw the intensity of alcohol and of drugs go up under alcohol prohibition, under drug prohibition. You're going to see a lot of very new, novel weapons once the legal restrictions come off of that. So it's going to get a lot more dangerous, and we already have seen what happened with Venezuela. Venezuela confiscated guns because their economy was crashing. They're hunting police on the streets and killing them for their weapons. That's what's going to happen to the police. They don't realize that here in this country.
Yes, exactly.
All right, that's
another large group of students coming out. I'm going to go over here.
Well, thanks, Joe. That's Joe Biggs and UCLA. Stay with us. We're going to be right back, and we're going to go to some of our callers who've been holding for quite some time. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the fourth hour of the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight on this June 1st, 2016. We've already gone through about half of the year. We've torn another month off of the calendar here. Hard to believe it's already June, but things are coming up on us pretty quickly. We're going to have the political conventions going to be coming up very shortly. We've got the California primaries going to be coming up next Tuesday. That's basically the end of it. And then we're going to have the conventions. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with those. We've got some more political news. We also have news about stealth attacks on our laws and our privacy. We're going to talk about that coming up, as well as La Raza grooming the Castros to work with Hillary Clinton. At the same time, we've got these guys from Texas, O'Rourke and Castro, one of the Castro twins, traveling with Obama to sell the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Yeah, Hillary says she's against that. She was for it before she was against it. And you can bet that if she gets in, she's going to run it through. Now, of course, Trump isn't. I believe Trump is legitimate and authentic on this issue. He's complained about NAFTA. He's complained about our unfair trade. Free trade is simply that. It's free trade. But when you have thousands of pages of regulations that are produced by people who are not accountable to you, that is not free trade. That is managed trade. It's trade that's being managed by people that you have absolutely no control over. People who are writing these trade agreements, they're essentially going to manage our economy from afar, and it will not be to our advantage. We've already seen how that works with NAFTA. And when we look at these secret laws, this is a story from the Drudge Report, secret laws passed in the U.S. spike under Obama. We're going to talk about the many different ways that secret laws are created. We had the American Revolution fought because of taxation without representation. We now have legislation without representation. Our Congress is not writing most of the laws. Most of the laws are being written by bureaucracies that report directly to the president. But this is a report about something that's a little bit different, something I wasn't even aware of until this article came out. Congress itself is passing secret laws that work hand in glove with the secret rulings from the secret court that is part of FISA. So we'll talk about all that. Before we do, I want to go to some of our callers who have been holding for a very long time. Michelle in Louisiana. Go ahead, Michelle. You're finally on. Thanks for holding.
Thank you. This is Michael, a.k.a.
Okay.
Uncle Sam. First, I want to start out by thanking a contributor that saw me on Alex Jones's show with my Kit Daniels interview, who gave me a large donation to get the videos I'm about to let you be aware of. The first one is Uncle Sam charged with simple assault for practicing free speech. I was charged last week by the New Orleans Police Department with simple assault for offending a social justice warrior.
Oh, you can't do that. Yeah.
Pardon?
Can't do that.
Yeah.
They're protected classes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the video is up. Uncle Sam charged with simple assault for practicing free speech. The other one was 2 days ago. There is a federal agent turned whistleblower, John Gondola, who has a site called Understanding the Threat. I interviewed his number one man in New Orleans. They have infiltrated Muslim mosques with people posing to be Muslim. They have uncovered a plot called Extraordinary Memorandum that is targeting the United States for downfall by the end of this year. It has marked terrorist targets that will happen this summer.
Well, I'm not surprised. And, you know, we have Obama is in a rush to get at least 10,000 immigrants in as refugees. And, of course, we have this story from CNS News saying there's 1,037 Syrian refugees admitted in the month of May. Only 2 of those were Christians. And what we're seeing here is nothing less than an attempt to replace the demographics in America. They want people who are not just the Muslim religion, but they want people from other countries who are going to see the federal government as their benefactor, who are going to be loyal to the federal government, who are going to be malleable by the federal government. And they want to replace the demographics. They want to have people here that are going to be beholden to them. And as part of that, they're going to be bringing in people that they can't vet. You know, when we look at this and we look at these statistics here, you got to say, if this is something that is about protecting people who are refugees, then wouldn't they be bringing in Christians at a higher rate? Because they're the ones who are the most at risk from ISIS. And why is it that we can't protect people in country? Why is it that so many of these immigrants that are coming in are young men who should be fighting ISIS in their own country? Men who should be going to war with the violent takeover, these terrorists who are in their country. Why are they fleeing the country, leaving the women and children largely behind and coming into this country? Young men of military age coming in. There's so much that's wrong about this. I'm not surprised at all, Michael, that there's somebody believes that they found some plots. I think this entire thing smells like a rat, and we've been saying that for a very long time. We know precisely what this is. We know that Obama wants to replace the demographics of this country. And it's not just Muslims, it's people from every part of the world who will come here and will be reliable dependents on the federal government. That's precisely what they're doing. I want to move on because we've had these other callers who've been waiting a long time. Let's go to Robert in Alabama. Robert, go ahead.
How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for holding.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Mr. Knight, and I want to thank Alex Jones for letting me on the show, you know, and what I want to talk about is I'm really upset with our current situation and everything with the government. And I'm a veteran, man. I've been over there in Iraq. I served 3 times. You know, I went through the deal over there, and I did the pain and suffering. And it just disheartens me, you know, what's happened with this country, you know. And
what are you concerned about?
Else.
What are you concerned about that you see happening with the country?
well, we've let all these immigrants come over there. We've held the battlefield over there in Iraq, and then Obama comes in and he gives that battlefield back to the enemy. You know?
Yeah, that's something we saw happening in Vietnam, isn't it? They would go in, they would clear an area, they would win the area, and then they would just walk out again and turn it back over to the enemy. And people started to realize that after a few years, they really did not care at all about winning that war. They simply wanted to have a testing ground for their weapons. And if you go back and you look at the history of DARPA, we had the author who wrote the book, The Pentagon's Brain, I think her name is Annie Jacobson, if I can remember correctly. But she had an excellent expose where you see the beginnings of DARPA in the Vietnam War. It began as a test bed for weapons, is really what it was about. And we look at Obama now touring Vietnam with these people selling the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's where this ultimately leads. This is global governance. They could care less about what happens to our soldiers. They're not interested in the welfare or the economy of our country. They're simply, Annie Jacobson. That's The Pentagon's Brain. It's a great book if you haven't read that. Filled with, it's a very compelling history of not just the Vietnam War, because it goes way beyond that. It begins before the Vietnam War, and it goes way beyond that. But you see how they betrayed the soldiers who fought in Vietnam. And now you've got Obama with Texas representatives, a couple of Democrat congressmen, O'Rourke and Castro, who supported the Trans-Pacific, Trade Promotion Authority, the TPA, so they could ram through the TPP and the TTIP, the Transatlantic and Trans-Pacific Treaties. He's got them with him, and of course they're being groomed for higher positions within the Democrat Party. Was there anything else you wanted to say, Robert, before I go on to Chris? I need to move on to the other caller real quickly. You want to wrap it up?
One thing, because I'm really disturbed, because I reflected on Memorial Day, and this goes to Memorial Day, because I have relatives that actually fought the Nazis during World War II, you know, and I want to give my hat off to Joe Biggs for what he's doing out there in California. He's a true patriot and everything, and he's boots on the ground.
Yes.
But I want to say this about my family, you know, because my family served during World War II. And, you know, they fought the Nazis. A lot of people don't know this, but, you know, went through the Utah Beach, the Battle of the Bulge, all of that. And then, you know, man.
Yeah, it was a tough time. And when we look at what happened, after we fought the Nazis, what did we wind up with? We wound up with Operation Paperclip. We brought back some of the most heinous war criminals you could find, scientists, and made them heads of our bioweapons technology, made them head of our rocket science, and that's what we've wound up with, and that's a key part of this story about DARPA. And eventually what they do is they wind up experimenting on Americans. One of the experiments on Americans, and, you know, we talk about Tuskegee all the time, but, you know, just talk about what they did to people in Vietnam. Not just Americans, but people in Vietnam, the way they tested weapons on them. Thank you, Robert. Let's go to Chris in Georgia. Go ahead, Chris.
Hello, how are you?
Doing good. Go ahead. Thanks for holding.
And I just want to first say that I'm a 15-year-old who is an info warrior, and my question to you is, since people like me are waking up, I do go to public school, and I do ask many people questions, and I mean many people like me are waking up. So so my question to you is, what can people like me do to make a change?
Well, it's really an educational issue. And as you talk to people and they're going to hear you explaining things to them, it's going to be very different from what they've heard. Now, they're starting to hear this in the mainstream media. For the longest time, we didn't hear many of these different aspects. We didn't hear things about the secret 28 pages. Remember when that first came up in the debates and Donald Trump talked about that? That was something that people had been talking about since the 9/11 Commission, for example. The people who were on the 9/11 Commission were talking about that. We've been talking about that for 15 years. Yet when Donald Trump brought it up, what did they do? We had National Review come out and say, Donald Trump sounds like an Alex Jones caller. They said he sounds like you, Chris. And they made fun of him. But then they started looking into it. And there was a report from 60 Minutes looking into this. And they went back and they talked again to the senators who were head of the Intelligence Committee who were on the 9/11 Commission. They talked to them about what was going on. And these people who have been pushing this for 15 years